version 12 demo. As before, we're going to follow a pretty simple agenda. I'll start with a very brief product overview, just kind of highlighting some of the new features in V12. Then my partner Carol will move on and give you a more in-depth demo, and then we'll take questions. As is our custom, we'll answer questions in the order in which they're received, so as they occur to you, please do get those cards and letters in. Now, probably the most significant aspect of version 12, unlike previous releases, is that we focused on Iron Speed Designer, the tool itself, more in this release than the features and capabilities of the generated application, which is not to say that the generated application was left short. It has some very powerful new features. But what we wanted to do was really focus on the ease of use, the usability, the simplicity of Iron Speed Designer to make it easier for you to use and work with on a day-to-day basis. And so most of the features that we're going to cover today really get to that particular end. We're trying to make Iron Speed Designer the easiest rad tool ever. And so it's almost like that old $6 Million Man show from the 1970s. You know, we can make him better, faster, stronger. Well, we've done that with Iron Speed Designer. It's better, faster, and stronger. The most important change we've made in version 12 in terms of how you use it is that we have consolidated virtually everything that you do when you modify a page's layout and adjust the how the application works around the application's property sheet. So when you're in the layout editor, the property sheet is really your jumping off point for just about everything in Iron Speed Designer. So if you've been a Designer user for a little while now, you will remember that we had a set of tabs at the bottom of the screen that had a cell editor, code methods, data sources, queries, and so forth, and those 4 tabs down there. We've moved 3 of those 4 tabs to the property sheet, but we've renamed them a bit in the process. So for example, what are now called actions are those formulas. So if you look at the actions set here, you'll see the old initialize when adding, save cookie, validate when saving, and so forth. So those formulas haven't gone away. They've just moved over to the property sheet. And so to bring back the formula editor, you just select the formula that you want or the action that you want, click it. It opens up the editor just like before. But as an improvement over previous versions, you can leave that editor on screen now. In fact, you can do the same thing for code methods and so forth. So you can have 3 or 4 of these different editors or tabs as they were formerly known up on screen at the same time, and Carol will be showing that. So as you move around from cell to cell, all of the contents in these different editors will update. So it gives you actually more flexibility to kind of see more at once if you're an experienced user and like that sort of thing. If not, you just simply dismiss the dialog. It goes away, and you're back to a very simple screen. So the main sections that we've added over here, of course, are the actions or the old formulas. There are the code methods. You see those here, and again, those operate the same as before. And then also, this one doesn't show it, but a more direct button actions section where we've split apart the old button wizard into 3 easier-to-use wizards that allow you to set the button action, set the button redirect, meaning once the action is performed, where do you go, what page do you go to, and then also a separate wizard for creating email. So when you click a button, you can send an email off. Those are the 3 real common things that you do with button actions. And then finally, the queries gets its own set as well in the property sheet. That's what was formerly called data sources. The other thing that we've done is expose the page level properties in the property sheet. Now before, this was always there in the property sheet, but you had to go to the very top to the control drop-down, drop that down, select the page paren, and go to that. And very few people actually knew to do that, and there was kind of a wealth of interesting things hidden away under that. And so while it was always there, I think it was kind of hidden behind door number 3, and nobody really knew how to get there. So that's on screen as part of the properties always. You'll see that in the page grouping here. So you see important things like the master page, how to set the page directives, which was formerly from a right-click menu, but again, that's here just at the page level. You can set the title directly and so forth, so that's all there. As I mentioned, the queries section is the renamed version of the data sources tab. And so you'll see the exact same things here in the queries section that you would have seen in the data sources tab. So you see the names of the queries, and again, you just click it, open it up, and you get the query wizard as before. And then also the styles, you know, the cell, the row, the table, those things are here. Those, again, were formerly in a right-click menu. So we've basically gone from several tabs in a right-click menu and a few other things to a consolidated property sheet here. Now, we've also simplified a few other things via the property sheet, like doing make, model, year, or dependent drop-down lists. This is a feature where you would typically use a formula or sometimes code so that when the user selects, say, the make of a car, you know, Ford, GM, Chrysler, BMW, and so forth, once they make that selection, then a second drop-down would become enabled with the set of models for that particular one. So, for example, if you'd selected BMW, you might get you know, the 1 series, the 3 series, 5 series, 7 series, and so forth. And then once you pick the particular model, a third one would become enabled, a third drop-down, which gives you the year, you know, 1995, 96, 97, and so forth. That's dependent drop-down lists or make, model, year. And while it was a fairly straightforward process to set up using formulas, it was a bit of a challenge to learn. You had to watch a video or two and so forth. Well, we've built that all in now by adding a simple new property here called depends on. And so what depends on basically says is, well, my model field depends on the make field, and my year field depends on the model, and so forth. All you have to do is assign that. We generate everything else for you. You've got instant make, model, year at as many levels as you want, because you're just setting up basically a chain of fields. You know, field A depends on field B, B depends on C, and so forth. As I mentioned, there was also the cell editor, that fourth tab at the bottom. That's been renamed to the HTML editor, but it works the exact same way, and it does the exact same thing. It allows you to put whatever code, HTML, text, ASP tags, whatever you want, third-party control tags in. The way you access it is just simply by hovering over a cell, and if you select that cell, you'll see a little enabled icon up here, which is the Edit HTML. You just click that, and voila, you're editing the HTML for that particular cell. Of course, you can leave that HTML editor open on your screen and just go from cell to cell, and it'll update as it did before. Next, we've simplified nearly all of our wizards, and means that our wizards operate in a more uniform manner, and we've kind of gone through them really screen by screen and simplified things whenever possible. So this is an example here of the application security wizard where we had a role step. That's where you assign roles to particular pages. And if you remember, that used to have several radio button lists and so forth, and we've made it a lot simpler now. All you do is you go in and go check, 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 grant these roles, go over here, check, check, check to these pages, click set, and you're done. That's about all there is to it. So again, the same functionality as before, but just a little easier to use. We also improved application generation speed, and depending on the size of the application you're working with, a small one typically sees about a 25% performance improvement in terms of the amount of time necessary to generate or regenerate that application. A big one, you know, with 100 tables or so, can see 100% faster generation time. And if you've got a big app, that's an important time savings. Unfortunately, it means you won't be able to spend as much time in the canteen talking around the water cooler or getting a cup of coffee. So sorry about that. And then finally, with Designer, we have actually two versions now, a 32-bit version and a 64-bit version. The 32-bit version is basically like we've had before. It supports all the same databases as before, including Microsoft Access. But we also have a 64-bit version. And the 64-bit version allows you to create really huge apps because it doesn't have the memory limitations in Designer that the 32-bit version does. So it can actually store much larger schemas, deal with much larger, much more complicated or complex projects than the 32-bit version. Unfortunately, it doesn't at this time support Microsoft Access, so that's why it's not just a simple 64-bit version. So you get to pick which version you want, the 32 or 64-bit. Now, we haven't left the generated application out of the picture. As I mentioned, we also have some important features for the generated application as well. Probably the chief one of which is the RESTful API generation. This is an entirely new type of application that we generate. And in short, it allows you to have programmatic API access to your application the same way that you would with by generating a web app or a mobile app. You now generate a module that you can interact with programmatically through an API to expose the functionality, as it were, to other applications that might want to interact with your database and your designer-generated application. Kira will be giving a demo of that in a bit here, too. And finally, we've improved the continuous scrolling feature, which is a popular feature on gallery and table-type pages. This works the way it does on popular social media sites like Tumblr, Facebook, and so forth, where you scroll down to the bottom, more records are revealed, you read those, you scroll down again, more records are revealed, and so forth. So it's continuous scrolling. You just keep scrolling down, and more data keeps being pulled in and displayed. With that, I'm going to switch now to my partner, Kirill, and he'll give you a more in-depth view of what's in version 12. Yes.
Hello, everybody. And let's look at some of those features, how they looks like on the live designer and the live preview. So right now you see the black screen. Oh, okay. Looks like my volume is not. Is it better? Can you hear me?
Better try the phone. Just pump up the volume on the phone.
I think it's. Oh, okay, cool. So first of all, right now you can see that there's a black screen, and on this black screen you see this icon. We added one small tiny feature which a lot of people asked. Now you can start Designer and configure it to open your application. Basically, all you need to do is to pass a parameter or argument to the designer of the path of your application. So here you can see this is the path to my application, and now I can just click on this thing and run it, and designer will start, and application, exactly this one, will be loaded, which is convenient because I can have several shortcuts to my different applications, and if I have designers of several versions, this is convenient because I don't need to remember which application was created by which version. You just create those shortcuts, and a month or 2 months or 3 months later, you just double-click, and it shows. So now it started. You see the application is opened, and let's have a quick tour through all the features Alan just mentioned. So first of all, before I go to the property sheet, which is one of the main attractions in this release, let me make it slightly smaller so you can see this whole designer on your screens, because I'm not sure that the white version perfectly fits. First of all, wizards. As Alan mentioned, we changed all the wizards, and mainly they become kind of uniform. So if you go to Application Wizard, first you will see the step where you can select your application type. Do you create only web pages, only mobile pages, both, and okay, looks like the sound quality is not good enough with this headset. Can try. Okay, let's try this one. Do you hear me? Okay, I'll switch to headset because looks like my headset was not good enough. And let me continue. So On the application wizard, on the application type tab, you can select the applications, web or mobile, or you can select the RESTful API. RESTful API compatible with both types. It's just additional functionality, so you can create all the same pages with all the same features, and they just can communicate differently to the database. So you can select or unselect them. Other steps are similar to what was before. On the configure step, you can see all the visual studios. You can select the frameworks and so on. It becomes a bit cleaner as well in the same fashion as other wizards. And if we open some of the other wizards, such as security wizard, you can see the same first step, which allows you to select the security type on this kind of checkbox tree. Or if you go to a deployment wizard, you'll see the same kind of tree on deployment wizard as well.
I'm getting a lot of static.
Really? Yeah.
How is this? Can we do a quick audio check and let me know if this is good or not?
I can barely hear you.
Yeah, somebody's saying still not good. Okay, Alan's clear, good. The president's voice is perfect. This is good. Good for Alan. Good.
All right, how's this?
Yes, guys, sounds better.
Can I get a sound check here? I just adjusted something on this headset. How does this sound?
Carol started because the mic is too close to his mouth. Alan's voice is okay. Alan's good on the second check. Sounds clear.
Switch back to this one then.
Carol's a lot of fun.
Okay. Now we switched the headsets and tried to adjust them a bit. How is my quality right now? This is a Kirill.
Carol's mic is much better.
Oh, right now it's good, right?
Yeah, a lot better. Carol's great. Good, Carol.
Okay, fine. Then I'll continue. So what I was mentioning is that all our wizards right now redesigned the way that they look the same, more or less. So you always have this kind of tree which you select what you can do on the further steps, and on the further steps, when you proceed, you will see the different types of selections. For example, in deployment wizard, we changed the way how you publish. You can publish to network server or to local drive or to cloud, and so on. So that was applicable to a bunch of wizards. Now let me show the property sheet and how it works. So first of all, let me go, for example, to show orders table, where we have a lot of different queries. And you can see that in the queries area over here on the property sheet, let me unpin for now the toolbox so these guys become bigger, all the queries from the page. What is interesting is that for your convenience, we always put the first query in the order and also mark it with the asterisk, the query relevant to this particular control. So right now, I'm sitting inside the orders table control, but if I'll select, for example, the customer record control, which is the parent of the orders table, you can notice that the first query becomes customer record control query. Or if I select, for example, the sales rep control, record control, which is another parent for this table, you can see that this got the first one. Similarly, if I have, for example, sum or count or chart dropped to the page, similarly, the query will be selected for it when you select the control. So thus, you can always see which queries you have, which are used, which are not, and which is the first one. If you remember, you had the formula stub before. Let me see how the formula stub looks now. For that reason, let me go to Edit Products table, because it will be kind of more interesting to see there. So this is editable table, and I'm sitting in the category ID field right now in the repeater. And you can see that all our formulas are listed right here in the actions area of the property sheet. you can see that I can, let me make it even a bit bigger so it will be easier to follow. You can see that I can initialize this particular field when I add record or when I edit record. Both are available, and because it's editable table where I can either just edit value inside the repeater or add a new row. It has other formulas such as, for example, save onto cookie or save onto variable. Currently, they are not used, and that's why they showed as disabled. But if I click this box, I can see here the disabled formula, which I can enable and save, for example, this value into the sum session variable. I just need to put the name of the session variable right here and the value which I'm being saved. Right here, you can see I'm on the browser where I can type something. And then let me go and select different cell, for example, supplier ID. You can see that this open dialog follows it, and the content of it changed accordingly. I can open something else. For example, right here, the code methods on the properties sheet, which is now list all the code available or code methods available for this particular control. This is supplier ID drop-down list, and that's why we have create where clause for it, populate for it, select index changed for it, all this type of methods. And I can open some of those methods and put it in the second dialog right here. So here's my second dialog. Now watch, if I go, for example, and select another control, in this case I'll just go back to my category ID, I can see that content of both dialogs now changes synchronously with me moving the mouse. And of course, category ID is different control. It's quick selector and has different methods, but it happened to have the same selected index change method. That's why it's shown here. What if I select, for example, method, let me go back to my supplier ID, which is not available for the category ID. Let's say I select instead my create where clause. So this is create where clause method, which is applicable for drop-down list, but not for the quick selector. Now, if I follow, it will be just got disabled because it's not available. So this way, you can have those dialogs open and go from one control to another control and just see the content which is being changed as you go. Now, another interesting thing is that the styles, they are always shown. So now you don't need to guess what particular styles are configured for this particular cell or this particular table. They are always in front of you, which is kind of convenient because sometimes you drag and drop control and then get surprised by that appearance. It looks not as you expected. Well, this time now, you will know that if you drag and drop anything in this particular cell, the class table cell value will be applied. And if, for example, I drag something in this cell, the different class, THC, will be applied. Also, you can see that our heading row has the row class, and, for example, the repeater row doesn't have a row class. Of course, you can change them at any moment. All you need to do is to, again, click the same way, and you will have the control over here. And, of course, if I go from cell to cell, by the way, for this cell editor, you cannot keep it open. It's different from the code, different from the formula or from the HTML editor. You can adjust this style here right now, type it, and save it back. Finally, another dialog which we had it up below before, and now it's on the button, is the Edit HTML. Again, you can open this dialog and navigate to different cells and then keep it open, or you can dismiss it after the first cell. Pages section. You can see that whenever I go, and I can go to different areas, I can go to filters, for example, right now, and select a filter over here. The pages area in the property sheet is always available and give you access to all essential properties of the page, such as the master page title, or, for example, pop-up CSS class. This is the class which allows you to change the appearance of your pop-up window if you open this page in the model pop-up. Smooth panel update could be enabled, disabled, security configured. Another thing I wanted to go through that each type of the control can have its own groups of properties. For example, right now I'm selecting the filter control. And for the filter control, there are special properties related only to filter, and that's why they are grouped right here in this section of filter. While if I, for example, go to the search and select my search text, you will see another group specific for this particular control, which will be search group. Is it case sensitive or not? Which fields need to be configured for this particular search? Basically, where do we search? What operator do I use? And so on. Similarly, for example, automatic type ahead is applicable for the search text box, but of course it won't be applicable for the filters. So these type of sections will appear depending on which control you selected. Alan mentioned that we have one nice feature which is called depends on, which allows you to configure so-called make model year. And let me show you how does it work. So let me go to the table where I dropped two filters. I will go to show order detail table right here and navigate to the filter area. Actually, I have two filters right on this page. Let me first go and show you how all this works. In fact, on this particular page, I actually put filters for the convenience. I think this was this page, or it actually was show orders. Let me see which one it was. It was either this or okay, it should be, I think, this one. But it's easier to find if I look on the page live. So my show orders 1 or 2, one of them. Let me wait until my website wake up. It was sitting there for quite a bit of time. It's on the order details because I need two parents, right? Sorry for that. Now when I looked at order details, so here, this is my order details table, and I put a couple of filters. I put them not in the filters section, but right here on the heading area for convenience. And I can see that I have two different job filters. Both of them are quick selectors. One of them is a category, and I can select it. For example, I can select condiments, and one products. You see that they are completely independent. They just populate some values, and products filters the table. So, for example, if I select product chai, I can see values for chai, or I can delete everything, and I see all the products. Now, what I want is to be able to filter my products values by the first category filter. So let me go back to designer, and this is the show order details 1 table. So I need to go order details 1 table. Here's my fields, and then let me go to the blank region. These are two my guys. So basically I put them into title area so you can see without opening and closing the filter button just for convenience. So now I want my product ID filter, which I simply drag and drop from the toolbox, to depend on a category ID filter. So what I do is very simple. I go here and see depends on property in the property sheet. Right now there's no dependency. All I need to do is to click this drop-down list and select the applicable control. Well, in this particular case, the only control which applicable is category ID because it's the only parent for my products table. So I select my category ID, and that's it. Don't need to do anything else. Now those two quick selectors become dependent. So let me build it and see how they behave. It will generate all the necessary code and apply the functionality to, for example, disable the second list until first is selected. Okay, compiling, and I think it's done. So let me go back. Give me just a second. That compiler is much slower than our build process, if you can notice. Build was immediate and took about half a second, while that .NET compiler, which obviously we don't have any control over, it needs to compile the whole application, takes a bit bigger time. Okay, I hope it will be done until at the moment when I refresh this thing. So let me click Control F5. Just strangely, that compiler still takes time compiling this page. Actually, my application is pretty large, and I didn't compile it today, so my guess, it needs to compile the whole application. Anyway, when it will be done, what will happen is that the two selectors become dependent on each other, and one will update another one. There's something is odd here. For some reason, again, maybe it's because my computer was sitting overnight, and Visual Studio got asleep or something. It's just as a compiler, not a designer building process. So now when I refresh this page, the browser will, so you see that my products, the quick selector becomes disabled because nothing is selected in my first guy. But when I select, for example, beverages, let's say, the product list, or quick selector in this case, becomes enabled, and I can see that there are only beverages are listed, starting with chai, chartreuse, Côte de Blayais, and so on. If I dismiss that and select something else, such as, let's say, meats, we can obviously see that my list is very different one. Now it's a list mouton, pâté, and other things, and whatever I select as my product will be applied to the table. So create independent quick selectors or dependent drop-down list, which works exactly the same way, is now really straightforward, just one click of a button. Another nice small feature we added is the Google Maps. Of course, you could create Google Maps before by creating a formula, but we simplified that. And for example, if I go to some table which has the latitude and longitude fields in it, such as cells representative table in the South Wind database. For example, let me go to my cells representatives. 1 second. And scroll down. Here is cells representative table. I can, of course, now drag and drop the maps inside the table from the toolbox. So let me unpin my toolbox. And I can see here I have a new thing, a new node called Google Maps. And those maps are, they're all type of maps are pre-configured for you. It could be just directions from start to end, or it could be a simple Google map with latitude and longitude, which can take 2 parameters or location. All of those are available. And I already dragged and dropped one of them and configured it. And you can see how it's configured right here. If I, again, go to my properties sheet, if I click this, I will see my formula for this map. But I can drag and drop second map, so we can see, and this is the fields from the table, what will happen when I drop in the maps. So I will have 2 of them. Let me just grab the second one and put it right here. And you can see that my formula here is slightly different for this one. It's default values, because when I drop it, of course, I don't know which fields I want to use. So we put some default values. Well, by pure accident, those values are the actual latitude and longitude of our office right here in California. But of course, it wasn't intentional. So we can see that they're configured differently. And if I build this application again, I hope this time that .NET compiler will do it faster. If not, then I need to check what's happened to my computer. Yeah, so it was maybe the first time around effect. And if I now refresh my site over here, yes, I need to refresh it, and then go to my sales representative table 1, which will be right here. I will see 2 maps. One of them I just dropped, another one was there, and they show different values. Again, this is our office right here, and almost, well, maybe the coordinate was close, but not there, but it's almost there. And here is the map which corresponds to this particular address for this particular person, which is in Seattle. So this is the map of the Jefferson Street somewhere in Seattle. And if I go to the next person, which is Andrew Fuller, which is also, no, this is in Tacoma, and it's a different map. So you can see that they're working, but I just wanted to show how simple now to get a new map with directions or with anything else. Infinite pagination. Well, as before, the configuration of the infinite pagination control or continuous scroll control is extremely straightforward. All you do is you just go to your page and select what type of paginations you want to use. So for example, if I go to my show orders table page and I want to select what pagination I want to use, I will navigate to my table control. Here's my pagination control. And then all you do is you click and select your pagination. But I already selected this one and configured it with the infinite scroll this particular way. And if I go to my website to this particular page, you will see how it works. It's actually extremely fast now. So here's my page, and as soon as I scroll, it will load my pages, and you can see how fast the new records are getting. I can't even scroll that fast as they're loaded. We actually changed the design of it, and now what is happening is that we're pre-populating the repeaters, empty repeaters on a page, and when you scroll down, the data bind method kicks in, preserving all the content and context of every page, so you can go to anywhere right here and click the edit button, which will open your proper record. For example, right now what I'm looking at, Ricardo Adossi Sadas. Well, I selected difficult name. And when I click it, I can see my orders, and orders show the proper record, so context is always there. I can click it, I still see the same place, nothing moved. So I can go down and I can, for example, edit my supreme delices, and you can see that context is preserved, is super fast. The only small trick here is that for the reason of we need to pre-populate those repeaters, we pre-populate some reasonable amount of them. So right now I configure it by default. You can scroll down 100 times. Well, in the normal world, it's more than enough because nobody scrolls more than 100 times. But if you want to allow people to scroll 1,000 times, nothing could be easier. All you do is you go to Tools, Configure Application, and right here you can say how maximum times of scrolls you can do. I have to tell you that it's pretty safe to increase it because one repeater adds, actually 100 repeaters adds only, let me remember, I think 8 kilobyte to the page size. So page size might increase from like 80K to 88K. So it's pretty safe to increase this number. It's not really consuming your bandwidth or anything like this, but it's now pretty fast and very reliable. Another very important thing I think we did in this particular release, we slightly changed architecture of several important pages. Before, as you know, all of our pages have section 1 and section 2, which allowed you to customize the code easy way and to preserve your customizations when you, for example, migrate or build or do anything else. So, for example, every control file will always constructed the same way. I have section 1 with 2 classes, which are empty effectively, but they are designed to be customized, and they inherit the base class, which is generated class. Well, we applied the same approach to several important other files, which are not page files, but, for example, the pages in the shared folder, such as base application page. Same way. Now you have section 1 with the empty class, which inherits the generated one. Important thing, a lot of people customize base application page, and it's necessary to do it if you, for example, want to put some logic which applies to all the pages. Similarly, logic applied to, let's say, base application record control, table control, etc. Same logic applied to, let me actually show all the files so I can show them. Now, same logic we applied to, let's say, global ASX file. So now if I navigate to this file, again I have section 1 where I can put my own references to some new libraries if I use third-party controls. And again, the same logic is applied now to base 4. No, I'm sorry, let me make it slightly smaller so I can see end of the designer. Right here. Actually a bit smaller because my designer is taller than my screen here. So the same logic also applied, for example, to important file, which is right here in data access layer shared, called base formula utils. That's the place where you can write your own methods or duplicate and change the logic of any formulas which are available on the Actions tab right now. It's very important to customize them because, for example, you want your Google map to show slightly differently, different size or different content or something else. You just go to formula and change slightly appearance. Now, again, we have section 1 where I can put your new formula and rewrite any existing one. So I think that will help you in 2 ways. It helps you to preserve your changes when you migrate, and it will help you to be more easier to customize because you can rewrite any method over here in section 1. Last but not least, a feature which I wanted to talk about is RESTful API. So what actually Designer does for you in this case? If you go and select an application wizard, and you can do it at any time. You can do it now, although I don't want to rebuild the whole application. It might take some time. And but believe me, you can just select these, and your application becomes RESTful. What happens is that when you deploy it, deployment wizard will create 2 parts. One of them we call provider, another one we call consumer. You can deploy the provider part to the server where your database is, and this server could be somewhere on the cloud. It could be behind a firewall with only port 80 open for the HTTP request. And your consumer part can reside on a completely different place, also in the cloud, in your office, or anywhere. All it's required that you have a simple HTTP access through the browser, basically, to your provider application. Provider application will run on RES. It will access database and expose a RESTful API which consumer will consume. So provider provides, consumer consumes. There are a couple of nice things about it. First of all, when you actually let me configure it right now. Why not? I can undo it any moment just on clicking this button. It will right now create all the necessary files such as controllers, which take care about requests such as API keys, etc., etc., etc. A bunch of different infrastructure, which will be deleted if I uncheck it. So again, you can go back and forth, create an application RESTful and uncreating it RESTful anytime you want. So give it a second, it compiles. Again, first time something was wrong with .NET, I think .NET get asleep. So now, when I try to deploy it on deployment wizard, I can see the deploy. It looks the same, but when I go next step, I will see that I want to provide URL of my provider. So basically, this URL will be configured in consumer, so consumer can communicate with provider. Of course, you can do it later on because it's nothing but one key in the web config. Some additional features are important. You can configure, do you want to enforce HTTPS or not? Do you want to enforce extra encryption or not? And you might enforce public-private key. We definitely recommend using public-private key, and we do recommend using HTTPS, and we do recommend using encryption. I just was playing with this, so right now there are different settings, but of course you can set the way you want them. Now, when we deployed it, believe me, I don't want to deploy it again right now, but I already deployed it before, so we can look how it will work. In iOS, I have 2 applications deployed. Right now, I'm actually hosting them both on the same computer, on my workstation. But of course, I can host them anywhere. So I have one of them is my server provider part, which is application deploy. Another one is my consumer part. And also, I created a completely custom third-party application in Visual Studio, not related to Designer whatsoever, to demonstrate that you can consume the REST API services from the provider, not necessarily by Iron Speed generated application, by any application. So let me go to the browser right here and show you 2 applications. This is Designer generated familiar application, the products page, nothing unusual about it. And this is very simple application created in Visual Studio 2013, which consumes the same exact RESTful API services exposed by the same exact provider. So what we can see right here, let me refresh the page to make sure that it's loading live data. So I can see here some records from the products page. Let me filter them by, let's say, beverages. And let me for example, change something. Let me edit this record for chai, and I will maybe call it now chai 1, and maybe I will make the price 19, and I'll update the record. I see chai 1 and 19. Now let me go to my designer-generated application and refresh this page. And you can see that really chai changed its name and same, so basically it's the same database. Now, if I look at the application, both applications do not have any connection string. So, for example, if I go to my designer-generated application right here, it's deployed to inetpub. It's default setting. When they deploy any application, they go to inetpub. So here is my application for, basically I can actually, as soon as I'm here, I can do the other way around. I can show that it works. Of course, it works both ways. I will make chai 2 and save this thing in the designer application, and of course it will update my database. So now it's chai 2, and when I go to my custom application and refresh it, it will show me, oh, I didn't refresh. Control F5, I need to, maybe it actually was different record, maybe. Let me try again, hold on. Cancel. Did they change the same record, or it was different record? I didn't change the record. That's what I thought. Because I see that something is not exactly as I was thinking it is. Okay, let me refresh it. Okay, now it's changed. Okay, the first time, oops, wrong click. The first time it was not changed. Maybe I clicked cancel or something like this. So now you can see the chai modified here. So either way, I can, both applications obviously working with the same data source, because changing records in one affects records in other. So now when I go and to my Windows Explorer right here, I hope you see it, and go to my application. So this is my designer, familiar shape of designer generated application. But when I look at my web config right here, this is web config, you can see that connection string, if I scroll down to connection string, is not present. There is no connection string. So how this application retrieves data, because connection string is always right here, but it's not no longer anymore. Well, it uses RESTful API. All it does, it has a key right here that my host is placed over there, and it goes to this address and retrieves the value. Of course, it has a couple of other keys, such as public key and private key, and some of the parameters like enforce encryption and public key, which are set to true. But the bottom line is that it doesn't have any connection string, and it uses the RESTful API. Similarly, my completely custom application is actually a 3-page, it's a very small application. I didn't put much time on this. In fact, I didn't put any time on this. I asked my colleague Ankit to do this, but it doesn't matter really at this point. It's a very simple application. All it does to retrieve, for example, products, is initializes the wrapper class which we created, JSON table, and then simply adds to this table page size, page index, which page we go to, how many rows I want to retrieve, what's the name of the table, and very simple thing. So whole initialization has happened right here on one screen, very straightforward, and then I get data by simply calling post request. So basically, if you have your control, grid control, or any other control, need to data bind it to any table, all we need to do is to create instance of this class and initialize it like this. Super straightforward, and we actually have a sample application with all of these functionality deployed, so it's very easy to do it. So that means that you can consume the services exposed by your provider by any custom application with very simple customization, or you can generate as many as you want designer-generated applications and consume them. Of course, there are some limitations. You need to use Framework 4.5, and you, of course, need to share the same data access layer if you using designer-generated application. Basically, use the same schema. Otherwise, of course, different tables won't be able to communicate. But it's pretty simple, I think. the very last thing I wanted to show is that Designer really becomes using 4.5 framework, and it's really 64-bit. If I open Task Manager right here, you can see that Designer doesn't have this 32 mark here. It runs in 64-bit mode, which you also can tell if you click on Designer and look at it here. I think that's all I wanted to show. So I think we have some questions over here.
Yes, great.
Yeah, I hear you.
Thanks very much. Good. Let me know if you can't hear me for any reason. I'm going to ask to get the switch back to me here. Okay, and the first question comes from John. Can I update a previously generated Iron Speed Designer application directly from version 10.2.1 to version 12, or do I have to upgrade it through the intermediate releases? The answer is you can go straight from 10.2.1 to version 12, so you can skip over releases. You do not have to go through the excuse me, intermediate releases. So that's pretty straightforward. Simply open the application in version 12. The migration wizard will appear. It's very simple. It's just a couple of steps. It'll make a backup and then convert your application for you automatically. Second question from John also regarding styles. Does the new property sheet provide drop-downs for valid choices, or do you still have to know the syntax of particular entries desired? Good question. So if we go to the property sheet, I think you're referring here to like the cell styles, so if you just pop that open, the dialog is the same as before, so there's really no change there. We can't actually show you all the different options because it's not just for changing the class. You can put in any number of attributes, including custom attributes you wish to pass through to your .NET application. So for example, custom IDs or custom attributes that are not interpreted by ASP.NET or HTML, but your application wants to use. You see that a lot in third-party controls, for example, where they will have custom attributes in there. That's why we can't present you with a complete list. However, if you click through this link, you'll see a lot of them here that says attribute list. Next question is, in your example of the new HTML edit button, the field named picture was displayed in Iron Speed Designer field that is probably a control type of image. What is the SQL Server data type that would populate this field? Well, typically that's a, what type of SQL Server field is a image? It's binary, right? Yes. It's image in SQL Server, but it could also be binary, and we handle both. Rick asks, will an application generated in 64-bit version work in a 32-bit environment? The answer is yes, and here's the important difference. The applications generated have nothing to do with whether you use a 32-bit designer or 64-bit designer. The 32 and the 64-bit are versions of designer itself, not of the generated application. So I probably didn't make that as clear as I probably should have. So it's the same application either way. Next question from Mohammed. If access is not there on 64-bit designer, useless for us because a lot of people use access. Well, then use the 32-bit version. The 64-bit version is really best for people that have applications with hundreds and hundreds of tables, oftentimes thousands of tables involved. Long asks, are there any other differences between 32 and 64-bit? Actually, the main difference really is size of application you can generate, and that's because of Designer's own memory management and the way it uses memory. It just has more available in the 64-bit version. So that's the primary difference. The other difference is, like Mohammed said, if you need to build a Microsoft Access version, then you should still use the 32-bit version, same as before. Jim asks, what is the guideline for a huge application where you would need to use 64-bit? can both 32 and 64-bit versions be installed at the same time to support older applications? No, you really need to pick one version or the other, 32 or 64-bit. In terms of what huge would be, if your application uses several hundred tables or more, or if, for example, even if you're using a smaller number of tables, but the schema itself, might be like an SAP or something where you've got 3,000 to 5,000 tables, then use the 64-bit version. The 64-bit version really is for people that have apps with hundreds and hundreds of tables. Long asks, can I convert old ISD 9.2 in new ISD 12 64-bit? Will my application code require any changes? Yes, just simply install the 64-bit version and then open your 9.2 application. Like I say, it'll open and the migration wizard will appear. It's very simple. It'll make a backup and then do the conversion. And unless you have made any oddball code customizations, there should be no change required there. As long as you put all of your code changes in, as Carol pointed out, what we call section 1 of those files, then there's no modification you need to do, nothing to reapply or anything. Just run it through the migration wizard when you open the app, and you should be good to go. Eddie asks, I love all the new features and enhancements, pretty sure will help new users. But the one I am waiting the most to start using ISD is a single add edit page. Will this feature be integrated soon? Thanks very much for that suggestion. That's good to know. That is one of the items that is somewhat popular and that we are looking at. Mohammed asks, do you provide ODBC connectivity in database selection? No, we actually use an OLADB linking technology because ODBC doesn't give us the full schema with the databases. So actually, ODBC is not very practical for a tool like Designer because of its limitations. Mohammed asks, can I use 11 and 12 version in one computer for time being? Yes, you can have all the old versions installed and kind of go from one to the other if you have an app in version 11 and that you're still maintaining in version 11, but a new app in version 12. James asks, have you had any issues migrating V11 applications to V12? We have production applications we would like to migrate, but get a bit nervous converting so soon after the V12 release. We don't know of any. We have not had any migration issues reported to us that I know of, and Carol's shaking his head no. So far, there's been nothing reported that's caused anyone an issue. So if you find anything, let us know. But we do improve the migration process with each release, and so I think it's pretty solid. James asks, really like the new properties layout, much more intuitive. Thanks. That was the goal. We think that is a kind of an organization for everything in your application really makes a lot of sense, and there's very little hunting around of where to find something. You just go to the property sheet, and that's where it's going to be. Denver asks, how will migration to V12 handle formulas, etc.? Will it migrate all V10.2 features smoothly? Yes, it should. Like I say, the only restriction is if you have put code customizations in section 2 as opposed to section 1 of the file, everything will migrate over very smoothly. Lisa asks, is there a documentation tab? Yes, it just moved actually in version 11, and you'll find the code docs up here at the top. So if you click this, the code docs appear up here. It's this button up here in the button bar. So it's not a tab, it's a button up here, and like the other, a lot of the other pop-up windows that we have in Designer, this one's designed to float around so it can stay open and you can navigate it and whatnot. And when you're ready for it to go away, just click the X and away it goes. So the code docs is still very much there. Okay, I'm going to pass it back to Carol now, who's got the next set of questions.
Yes. Thank you, Alan. I have a bunch of questions right here. Question from Michael. can you set up mutual dependencies? For example, gross amount depends on both number units and unit price. No, you can set up in at least in current implementation by default depending only on one control. Depending on two controls, not available right now. Question from John, could you take the time today to show how to deploy the designer-generated application on the local server or development laptop so that application can be run from IIS on local server instead of having it run from the designer? Well, there are two questions in one. So how to run application from IIS, not from designer? Well, very simple. You don't really do anything. All you need to do is to go to Build menu, select Run with IIS. And when you do this, designer will create application in IIS, and I did that yesterday. So basically here you can look at my IIS right now, and here's my application. So to run it now, I don't need designer. I can close designer, and this application right here still perfectly run because it runs from IIS. It doesn't need designer at all. Not in the picture anymore. Now, if I want to deploy it to some other server, well, again, there are two ways. Well, first of course, you can create deployment package and deploy it, or you just can create application in IIS and point into your application. If you are still in development, then of course the second way will be better because you still modify the application. That's what happened now. I'm running it right now from IIS and not from designer. So I think that answers the question. Can I change? So basically, again, answer is I don't need to do anything. You just click here and select Run from IIS. It will magically create the folder in IIS, which you can navigate then in the browser, or you can literally browse from the IIS. Question from Mohammed. Can I change directly or copy-paste the query in Properties tab? No, you cannot select the query right here and paste it. The queries are created when you either add, like for example, drag and drop from a toolbox, some data-bound control such as panel for record or table, or for example, drop-down list, or the sum or count. Then you can modify this query, but you cannot copy and paste the queries. Question from Benson. Hello, what if I have 5 filters to go? Will dependency flow along in the illustration? Yes, you can have as many as you want. Just go for each one of them and make it dependent on another one. As long as they are relatives. You can make it depend on a parent, you can't make it depend on a cousin. So it could be kind of forward relationship, child to parent to grandparent and so on. Also, by the way, you also can make it dependent on any control from the same table. So, for example, you can have a text field in the, let's say, on the record, and then drop down list or quick selector depending on this text field. And this text field, for example, could be initialized from URL parameter. So, thus, if you do this, your kind of dependency would be enforced by URL parameter, although, or you can type in the text field your value, and your drop-down list becomes filtered by this value. So if they are from the same table on the same page, they can depend on each other. But if they are from different tables, then it's only through the foreign key relationship, virtual or normal, child to parent. Question from Al. Can I update the bottom portion of screen data without selecting the product type? For example, select category and the bottom portion to show all products in this category without drill down of product type. I'm afraid I don't understand which particular screen we are talking about and what does it mean bottom portion. So bottom portion of what? I'm afraid I'm not sure I can understand what it is. I'm tempted to say yes. A question from Al. I'm tempted to say yes, but I'm afraid I'm not sure what I'm answering to. Question from Denver. Can depends on filtering allow only products in the returned results to be shown? You're talking about the result set. No. So result set is a completely different option. For example, you can configure it here populate from database, and use result set or database query, you see the difference is that the dependency is implemented on the layer of database query. So what happens underneath the hood when you set one control depend on another is that among the other things, such as post, back, proper order of generation, etc., we set where clause from the query of the dependent control to the parent. So basically, it as the query where the where clause where the my primary key or my foreign key value equals to selected value in the parent, something like this. But result set is not actually a database query, because the value is populated from the values on the page. So there's no way we can add a where clause over there. So no, it's only will work if you have the database query to populate. Question from Al. Can it show updated page for everyone logged or for everyone logged in or using the application? For example, stock ticker, one person updates, but everyone's screen is updated to what price is. Well, again, I'm not sure I understand at all the question from Al. Sorry. Question from Fred. Please demo to RESTful API generation. Please demo the RESTful API generation. This is the selling point for us. Well, thank you very much for this comment. We were hoping that it's a selling point for somebody. Now about demo, I just did. All it has to do to generate RESTful API application is exactly what I shown. You go to application wizard. In fact, by the way, I already unchecked it, so right now it's not a back non-RESTful application. But to make it RESTful again, all you do is you check this checkbox. When you do it, application will generate for you all the necessary files, and then when you deploy it, run the deployment wizard, what it will do, it will create such package. Let me show you the package. I have a lot of them because I did it a lot of times already. And one of the last ones, which I demoed today, by the way, is right here. 1 second. Let me go through my guys. And that would be right here. So the package which it creates is twofold. So it creates two guys, one of them called provide, another one consumer. Both of these people guys have the zipped application without, of course, the schema, etc., just the files such as SPX files and DLLs. And it has the command. So to deploy it, all you do is you follow the instructions in this text file, which is compiled right here. Basically, you will just need to run from the command prompt this cmd command /y, and it will install the application inside the IIS. Basically, that's it. That's all about it. So you check the checkbox on this guy, and then you deploy it. Then, when I want to connect my other application, for example, not created right now, but before, all I need to do is to make sure that in my application, this, do I still have my web config opened? I hope. Yeah. All I need to do, if I have application generated later on next year, that my schema is the same and that my keys, public-private keys, are the same. We have also functionality to generate new keys on the server part, on the provider part. I do not want to go through it now because I need to deploy it, but we generate small application which allows you to just a separate application to generate those keys. Actually, you know what? I'm wrong. I can show you right now. I have it right here deployed, and it will be part of the application, I believe. So all I go to my server part, browse. Let me open it. This is my deployed, no customizations whatsoever. I need to sign in. Well, default is admin, of course, but that is, of course, you will change it as soon as you deploy it. It's the first time. We have interface for that. And then I have to, yeah, sure, sign in. Hey, well, okay, doesn't work. Sorry. I need to set up IS for that. I didn't. But anyway, you can change the keys when you properly deploy it. I didn't set up IS properly for this guy. Now, I'm just going to show you how to change the private and public keys at this moment. Question from Michael. So, will the inclusion of the pre-coded section 1 overrides provide for automatic transfer of customization during migration? Yes, that was exactly the reason. As soon as you put your code in section 1, it will be saved through migration. Of course, when you migrate to version 12 from the version where there was no section 1, we would need to replace the file. But going forward, yes, it will preserve your code. Question from Edward, what about support for Windows phones? You know, we are thinking about it all the time, and we are looking at the market share of the Windows phones, and we're always thinking that as soon as this market share will go in double digits, we will definitely need to provide the support, but it stubbornly doesn't go there. In fact, the market share actually dropping. So, so far, until the trend will change and Windows phones become not even as popular as iPhones or Androids, or at least a bit more popular, we will add support for it as well. Question from Michael, if I have a Iron Speed Designer application developed originally back in version 4, will it be better to migrate to version 12 or just create a new? You know, honestly, create a new. Because there are two problems. First of all, you cannot even migrate it to version 12 directly. You first need to migrate it to some versions in between, such as version 6, 7, or 8. And it won't be easy because we made a very big structural change at version 6/6.2 on this at this time. It was also a long time ago, like 6 years ago. But we changed quite a bit. We changed all this schema for our files. So even migration to version 6.2 is not easy. And then since then, there was a bunch of changes as well. So yeah, I would create a new. Plus, we have so nice themes. Look, I think the latest modern grid and modern themes are so stunning and nice looking that I wouldn't stick with the classic theme. I'm not saying they are bad. We just preserve classic themes as they were 7 years ago, so they still look as good as they were 7 years ago. Question from Anil. Can we create application using Iron Speed Designer to deploy it in the SharePoint 13? No, you cannot. What you can do, though, is you can use WebPart with the iframe, and you can run designer-generated application in the iframe. Question from Mohammed. How do change company name in master page? Well, I'm thinking you are talking about the header. If it is the case, then it's extremely simple. All you do is you go to actually a header. So what I'm talking right now, let me go to my page. I think you're talking about this, your company logo right here. Then you go, or you might be talking about this copyright over here. So if you're talking about the header, then you obviously go to header. So here is the headers and footers, not logo. Then I'm not sure what the company name you're talking about. We have title, which is for every page is changed right here in the properties. We have logo. We have footer in the down there. What other company name is in the master page? We don't have any other company name. So not sure which company name you mentioned. But you can change logo, you can change footer, or you can change the title of the page. I switch to Alan with another questions.
Thanks, Kirill. I'll let you rest your voice here for a little while. John says that you have achieved your goal of establishing Iron Speed Designer as the best app generator on the planet. Great job. Well, thanks very much, John. I really appreciate you saying that. Renee says, thanks a lot. Very interesting new version. I have to run off to the next meeting. Have a nice day. You're most welcome, and enjoy your meeting. Muhammad asks, are charts and reports improved in this version with drag and drop at runtime? No. Designer does not generate interactive report creation applications like you might get with a Crystal Reports or a MicroStrategy or tool like that. We think that's actually quite well done by those other tools, and would recommend if you're trying to do that sort of interactive report construction where your end user is doing that, that you look at one of those tools. Michael asks, is the RESTful API only available in the 65-bit version? Sorry, we only have a 64-bit version available at this time. We'll have to get to work on that 65-bit version. Actually, RESTful API can be generated by both versions, the 32-bit and 64-bit versions. So RESTful API is not specific to either 32 or 64-bit. Rodney asks, is there a performance difference between normal database access versus RESTful access for large, small, or complex data sets?
Let me answer on this. It is, because basically you need to pass all your data for your page here, so all your requests and all your data back through the web interface, so HTTP interface, which could be, for example, your server could be located far, far away. So that latency will, of course, affect it. However, said that, if your latency is very small, or you have super fast connection in both ways, and they're not that far away, not like Europe / United States far away, the difference is almost non-existent. Of course, if you have multiple big applications loading a lot of data, you need to take care about your provider part. You need to have server with a lot of memory, and you might create the so-called web garden, meaning multiple, allow the IIS to run multiple processes, because you need to share the load. But this side of that, there is almost no difference.
Okay, thanks. Let me continue on here. Fred asks, are there any plans to build Angular JS or similar HTML5 front end using Bootstrap? The answer is yes. I think you're talking about what's so-called responsive design techniques, and we actually have that under development for an upcoming release. As you may know, we generally have 1 or 2 releases under development at any one time, and so that's something we're planning for future releases. Paul asks, you mentioned that we could use 64-bit mode for a big project. What if I start a system in 32-bit mode? How will I know that 32-bit was not what I should have used? What will be the indications that I should have used 64-bit mode? Well, actually, it'll work just fine. What will happen is you'll start to get out-of-memory errors or memory limitation errors when using the 32-bit version. So if you start to see that happen, simply uninstall the 32-bit version, install the 64-bit version, open your app, and you're back on your way. You'll just have access to a lot more memory. So it's really a available memory and memory utilization issue. That's the difference between 32 and 64-bit. It's 64-bit version designer just accesses more memory. Teresa says, can multiple developers work on the same project? Yes, they can. That's always been true. A lot of people use source code control to keep their different parts of their application. Obviously, 2 people cannot work on the same page at the same time, just like 2 people can't edit a code file at the same time. And so that's what you just have to be careful of. So, you know, you can work on the first 10 pages, somebody else can work on the second 10 pages, and so forth, and then just you know, check them in and synchronize them through source code control. That's a fairly common sort of thing in multi-user environments. In fact, if you look under the build menu here, there's a thing called source control, and what that does is let you know when a file needs to be checked out. It won't check it out for you because we don't know what source code control system you're using, but it will let you know if it's write protected, and hence it's assumed to be under source code control, and you need to check it out first. Eric asks, can I write a custom control and have it appear in the Iron Speed Designer tools menu? No, I assume you mean not the tools menu up here, which are all wizards and configuration options, but in fact the toolbox over here on the right-hand side, where we have a variety of different controls and things. So no, unfortunately, we don't have that capability. We do, of course, have the capability that you can add your own custom control into any cell. Just click the HTML editor here. That was that button in the upper right-hand corner, and just go in here and type your custom control. So if you're using like Telerik Rad Grid or something like that, you can do ID, this sort of thing, and add it that way. That's how you do this sort of thing. So if you need to add that a lot, just save that in a notepad file or something so you can paste it into a cell very quickly. Rick asks, if I've installed a 64-bit version, how can I switch to 32-bit instead? Simple, just uninstall the 64-bit, install the 32-bit, and away you go. Jean-Francois, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, asks, could you add a search grid? By property grid, I assume you mean the property sheet over here. We could. We tried to make it simple, and rarely is there more than kind of a, this number of properties, for any particular thing. So occasionally it can go longer. Now I'm running on a fairly small screen. I'm running on a small screen laptop myself right now. So I'll take that under advisement, but I actually think the number of properties is fairly manageable, so you shouldn't have to search too long. We've also organized it so that you have control properties here that has everything to do with the currently selected control, and then there are page properties, queries, and styles. So you're going to find the same groups. So if you think logically about it, you just have to ask yourself, am I dealing with a control, an individual control, or a page? So, okay. Al asks, deploy app. Will it just deploy pages generated with Iron Speed and connection string to SQL, or can it generate database tables in SQL on remote servers and update the connection string? Example using install shield, can you ask paths, etc. during install, and maybe just give some info on the install deploy? Iron Speed Designer does not generate database tables. It always uses an existing database. So your database needs to be accessible from wherever you install your application. That's kind of the basic rule. If you want a lot of detail about this, go to our website, go to the online help here, and then go to the deployment section of the online help, deploying applications into production, part 6 here, and you'll find all manner of stuff, on how to deploy various types of applications. So there's a lot of detail and knowledge in here if you ever want to get into the nitty-gritty. Reginald asks, I find all the moving of controls a pain. Just when I get comfortable with where everything is, I have to learn another way to perform the processes. The learning curve is steep if you don't develop every day in Iron Speed. Well, thanks very much for your comment. I assume what you're referring to is the fact that we've moved things from the tabbed windows that were down here at the bottom into the property sheet. And yeah, that's a fairly big UI change there. I think this is one that is going to be fairly stable for a long period of time because it is such a major change. I would think that the wizards are less of an issue because we've just simplified those and tried to streamline them and make them a little more homogeneous, meaning they all kind of work and look and feel the same way. But I do appreciate every time we do change the tool, there is a learning curve existing customers have to go through. So on one hand, I apologize for that, but I think if you learn what we've the changes that we've made in version 12, especially with the property sheet, you'll find things pretty easy, and it's pretty easy to acclimate yourself to. Rodney says, will there be support for an integrated tree control anytime soon? We don't really have any plans for that. I think there's one of those in the Ajax kit down here, which you can find under ASPX and other controls in here. So there's like a, let's see, I think what's here is here. You just have to look at that, but we don't have any particular plans to generate one of those. I'll keep that under advisement, though. We do appreciate feature requests. That's where a lot of these things come from. Michael asks, where is the specification for whether a new page is opened or a pop-up window is shown when an edit button is clicked? Well, glad you asked that, Michael. I'm happy to show that. That's, I think, one of the things that we've improved in version 12. So I'm just going to scroll over here, and I'll just select a button, the Edit Row button here. And if I go over to my property sheet, and that's clue number 1, pretty much everything you look for in version 12 and beyond you'll find in the property sheet. So go look in the property sheet for it. You'll find under button actions, we have a thing here called redirect. And I'm just going to click this and open it. And so the first thing you do is select the redirect action. And I'm going to move this just here so you can see the redirect. And so go back to a previous page browser, open in a modal pop-up, which I think is what you're referring to, a pop-up window, or whether you're going to a different page, and that's what's currently selected, redirect to a specific URL. So really it's these two options that you're referring to here, the navigate to a specific URL within a new, within a modal pop-up, or with a specific URL. So that's done with the redirect action wizard that you access through the property sheet right here. Al asks, real-time update of inventory. Example, company has quantity 5 of item A. A client purchases 4 and places an order, so quantity left is 1. This is going to be one of these questions that you sum everything up and they don't add up. It's one of those trick questions. Everyone who is viewing the page or product and quantity in stock will be updated to show 1 left rather than having them press F5 to refresh the page. Or can I just email question with scenario later if you prefer? Thanks. Sorry, we don't mean to have fun at your expense here, but I think I understand what you're asking. You can certainly have people press Control F5. If it's just a viewable page, what you can do is you can put a timeout on the page so that the page automatically refreshes after a period of time, say every 10 seconds or a minute or whatever, to reflect the current. Or when you click an edit button or a commit button, it then fetches and shows you the current amount out of the database. But I think that's kind of the nature of web applications, is that they don't really update on their own regularly to refresh and show you the data. So I think you would need to do one of those sorts of methods. If you reach out to our tech support team, they may have other ideas as well. Dave Statmiller says, looking good, thanks. Thank you, we appreciate that. And Jay Benson says, how easy will it be to migrate from version 8.02 to version 12? That should be quite simple. Just open it up and let the migration wizard do its thing. As Carol mentioned a couple of times, if you have any code customizations in Section 2 instead of Section 1, you'll need to migrate those by hand. Or if you have some of those files that we did not migrate previously that you just copied new ones, you'll need to apply any customizations to those. A number of those we've actually addressed in version 12, so going from version 12 to releases beyond 12, you won't have as much difficulty there. Okay, I'm going to switch back to Carol.
Okay. I have some more questions, and most of them, believe it or not, about RESTful API. So, question from Jim. When using RESTful API, can we deploy consumer application to multiple servers? Yes, of course, yes. You can have the same consumer application on multiple servers. You can have different consumer applications on multiple servers. All of the above. Can consumer application use non-Iron Speed Designer data sources? No, you cannot. The reason is the consumer application generated by Iron Speed Designer assumes that you will get specific payload which can be translated by the methods in the business layer. And this is pretty specific. So as I mentioned before, you can use your provider for your own custom applications, which is pretty easy thing to do, or designer-generated consumer applications, but consumer application generated by designer cannot use non-designer-generated provider. Harold is asking, I'm not familiar with RESTful API. Can you describe what it is and how I would use it? This is a pretty large topic. In the nutshell, RESTful API is the subset of the web services, and it just declares a specific subset of web services according to this only 4 commands you can post. Those commands are get, post, put, and delete, and they can have a payload which we use. We use only post command, by the way, no out of those 4 with different payloads. And basically that's about it. It uses HTTP interface, HTTP or HTTPS, to pass information using those commands. That's all it's about. How you can use it? Well, if you, I think, actually it's not the first time I will get those questions, I think that if you don't know how to use it, that maybe you don't need it. No, I'm not trying to make a joke or offend you, it's not at all. I'm just saying that when you need to use it, you kind of have requirements. Like, for example, you have to put your server behind the firewall somewhere on the cloud, and there's no way, database server, and there's no way you can access your database using the connection string from your application in the different cloud, because there's firewalls which prohibit you pipes, integrated pipes connection or TCP/IP connection from the from the application to the database server. If you are in such situation, the only option you have is to put the provider which will use this database server to retrieve data and then expose it using RESTful API through the port 80 HTTP, which is much more secure way to access it, as an example. Or there could be other examples, but I mean, if your application is set, working, running, and there is no problem with it, there is no reason to switch to RESTful at all. Will the REST API consumer example application be available? Yes, it will. In fact, it's almost done. We wanted to make it just a bit nicer and put some comments inside to make it easier. Basically, the work is almost done, so I expect it to be available for download maybe in the next couple of days. We will give the package which will have a provider, which will have designer-generated consumer, and the third-party kind of Visual Studio, pure Visual Studio consumer, like the one I just shown. So you can download all of them and see how they work, etc. So yes, it will be pretty soon. Question from Jay Benson. I'm interested in all methods of your approach to provision and consumption of services using Designer. Can I get detail on this? Basically, I already explained everything I want and elaborated as much as I could on this topic. Internally, when you configure the RESTful API, we convert the payload using JSON and Web API protocol. So they first using JSON, they're serialized, all the objects such as table names, where clauses, order by objects, all of these types, all of these classes are serialized, and then they might be encrypted, and then using Web API and private public key functionality, there's a handshaking between the consumer and the provider, and if handshaking is successful, meaning the private and public keys match, then the provider using one of those controllers to figure out which particular table was requested, process the request, serialize, retrieves data, and sends them back. So basically something like this. Question from William. Is the RESTful API available via WSDL reference? No. Question from Alan. Can you go over dependent drop-downs again? I missed the part. Yes, sure, of course. This is quite easy thing to do. So let me do the following. Let me, from scratch, just drag and drop 3, because there was a question, is it only 2 or 3, list and make them dependent. So I'm right now on the filters area of order details table. So I will drop something like this. I will drop, for example, drop down or quick selector. You want drop downs, so I will drop down. Let me do this to make them drop downs. I can then make the default control right here, or I can do this on the control by control basis. I will have another presentation. I want to use this application again, so let me do it on the control by control basis, but I also could do it using the configure application and setting here what's default. Oh, then it's easier. I don't need to change every bunch of them. So first I drop the, let's say, the filter from the categories, which is just category name. Then I will drop the filter from the products with the category ID, and then I will drop the filter from the order details with the product ID. 3 guys. So now I want to have them dependent. When I select name, I will select this ID. Well, in this case, I don't have in my schema a lot of parents. I mean, I don't have 5 layers relationship, unfortunately, at this second. So I kind of when I select name, of course, it will define ID. Although, if I have 5 categories named beverages, then all 5 IDs will be available. So what I do? Select my category ID, look here, click this drop-down, and make it dependent on the name. Select product ID, go here, click drop-down, make it category ID. Done. That's the demo. Question from Adel. Do you have a sample on how to call RESTful API in the browser? Where can I get the consumer shown in a demo? So there's 2 questions. So first, the application calls it using the, you don't call it in the browser. You cannot just construct in the browser randomly some query to receive it, because as I said, we use only post command, and it has to have special payload, and this payload needs to be created by the special class. It could be either done by the designer-generated consumer or by your third-party application if you include our library and the class which I mentioned when I showed right here. So basically, this is the custom Visual Studio created application, no designer involved, but it has a reference to base classes, and it uses this class from base classes. This class internally will create the payload, and this payload is necessary to retrieve the data. But where can I get consumer shown in a demo? As I said, we will have this for a download maybe in a couple of days. I will try to make sure that we will send email to, you can basically do it simple. Next week, check our website, sample applications. You know, you can go to our website right here, Iron Speed, and then there are sample applications. Right now, you have already a couple of applications, order management system you can download, and the job application system you can download. We will have a link here for the 3rd package, which will include the RESTful API application. Check next week. If it's not there, then refresh another day. Question from Chris. Please explain IS options for version 12 on Windows 7. Use built-in ISOS Express. Okay. Live preview, or if I run it using development server, we'll use IS Express. So if I go back, right now I switched to IS for the only single reason it's easier to have application always running, not necessarily if I rebuild or change application type, my IS always available. It's kind of easier because development server sometimes can need to be restarted. But you can switch here to development server and it will use IS Express. If your framework is 4.5 or 4.0, and if your framework is 3.5, it will use a Cassini development server. So that's the answer. The differences are, what are the differences? The differences are, well, IS Express, by Microsoft opinion, is by far superior to their older Cassini server. By our opinion, it's not exactly the case. The problem with IS Express, as it usually happens with, well, not usually, but often happens with Microsoft products, they kind of a bit over-engineered the approach. They wanted to have development server with the full features of normal IS, meaning that it has two different profiles. One of them stored inside the program files, another one stored inside the users, your username, documents, applications, software. I don't remember how many, very deep down there, folders. Those profiles behave differently, and they impose certain functionality on you. So, for example, if your profile says don't use Windows authentication, then no matter what you do, put in your web config, you won't have Windows authentication. You need to go and change profile, which is super inconvenient. Cassini was very light and straightforward server, but Microsoft thinks that extra functionality they added overweights the inconveniences. Okay, hold on. Iron Speed, I assume, knows what foreign key to use to make association between. Yes, it checks all foreign keys. If you have more than one parent drop-down list or quick selector from different parent tables, basically your table can have a bunch of foreign keys, right? If you have two of them, you will have two in the list, like I can even show you right now, as long as this topic is here. For example, if I have the product, I have one product table. Yeah, so basically if you have full, in this scheme I don't have one. I'm just trying to think quickly, but I don't have more than one, unfortunately, parent over here. But there could be a schema when you have multiple foreign keys, then you can have a selection of what you, which one do you select. Yeah, I'm just thinking about the schema, can't figure out. I don't have maybe table in Southwind. Let's see. Actually, you know what? I don't think I'm right. I can have filter from orders. Unfortunately, I need to change it a bit because it by default does this thing to me, but I will change it. It will make a drop-down list. Okay, this is the orders, and then I can have this one from products, and another one I can have from customers. So hold on, bear with me. And let's say customer ID. Now my order ID, very possible, it shows customer. This one was from, I need from the one from product actually. Hold on. Product table. Where's my product table? I need from product table. This one. Right? Not a text box. It tries to offer a text box because it's a number, and it thinks that I want a range. But I don't want a range. I want a drop-down list. So now I have. Let's go back to my order, and no, it still doesn't see my products. Well, if I have two parents, yeah, it will show all of them. I have a question from Joey. I'm not sure actually orders has the product. Oh, orders doesn't have a product. Order has what? That's why. Orders has customer and sales rep. That's why. I'm sorry. I was thinking about all the details. I need sales rep, and then I will show you how the multiple choices you could have. Sales rep. I will drop it here, and just in another second, and you will see the magic. I hope. Otherwise, it will be said drop-down list. Now I have two parents of the order table. So order supposedly should list me both of them, right? And it lists both of them. You can see that if you have several foreign keys, like orders has two foreign keys to customers and to tables, you can select which one you want to depend on. Question from Joey. Is RESTful API standard ASP.NET MVC Web API architecture? And can the RESTful API be customized in enforce authentication or control for which tables API shall be exposed? Well, this is several questions, and I have a bunch of yeses and nos in answer. So yes, it's a Web API, Web API 2.0 architecture. No, it's not MVC. Yes, it's more or less standard, but no, you cannot be easy customized to remove the tables, although you still can do it. When you generate RESTful API, you have controllers for every table, and you make a code customization. It's not possible to do through interface, but it's quite easy to do using code. You go to controller and configure which one will be exposed and which one are not. In fact, you can just add or delete the controllers to only work with specific tables. We have actually extensive help about it. I want to point it out as long as we're on the topic, because we actually explained most of those things over there. So if you go to technical materials online help, the chapter number 6, right here, scroll down a bit, the chapter number 6, deploy an application, right here, you can see RESTful API. You can click on any of those guys. There is overview, there is the implementation details, how its controllers are implemented, third-party application, all of these type of things. So I recommend reading this. It's actually have a lot of screenshots and pretty detailed explanation of how it works. Can you please show the parameter path for opening application directly? Yes, it's very, no, why not? So when I go to my desktop, just go to the properties of this guy. Here's the annoying part. Microsoft doesn't think that somebody needs to make this dialog bigger, like expand the dialog. So it will handle. Annoying. But basically that's what it is. Here's my designer to start with, right? And then you have a space, and then the parameter which is actually a path of my application. This is my application on drive C. That's it. You have a designer, and you have a path of your application. Nothing else. Can the infinite scrolling benefit from RESTful API? It could speed up further as formatting is not sent again and again. No, it's not true. There's no formatting sent again and again. All it's sent is the records. And the records will be sent either way, RESTful or not. And there's no formatting sent. Can you show how to use result set, please? Got it. I first thought my thoughts were different. So if I have one of those filters, I have right now already 10 of them while I was showing how it all works. You go to populate from database. In here, you click this thing and you have a choice. Use database or result set. It depends. It could be enabled or disabled using, of course it will be disabled if you don't use the same table. And I'm right now on the order details table. But if I use some filter from this table, which is my product ID, it says order details. That's where actually this might be from the, this is the quick selector, right? Yes. Well, let me drag and drop a new one. So basically, actually, this one. It's a quick selector, but let me convert it quickly to drop-down list. This is the filter from this table itself. So obviously, you can use all the result set when you have a filter populated from the table itself, not from the parent. And now, when I go to populate from database, you can have this radio button enabled to use result set. If I do this, what it will do internally, instead of running query against the table or database, it will actually grab all the values which are a result of the previous query for the table. If your table is large, don't use this because it will be super slow. Can the customization code be changed or enhanced? Has the customization code been changed or enhanced? I think you're talking about code customization wizard. If it is, then no. It hasn't been changed. And last question over here from Jesse. Is there an easy way to lock column headers in place for infinite scroll? If not, can it be a feature request? This is a good question. I think there is a way, and obviously if you would attend our webinar yesterday at 5 o'clock, you would know the answer immediately, because yesterday we had a webinar about the customizing the style sheet. So basically the answer is that it could be doable using the div tag surrounding the header area and setting position to be fixed. I would not try to demonstrate it right now because I would type something wrong on the fly, but that's the common approach. You need to surround basically your header area. Let me unpin some things. So this is the header area. You need to surround this thing with the, although it's just a repeater. Let me think a bit. It may be tricky. It may be actually the request rather than, yeah. Well, I think it's not doable easy way. We have because this is all the portion of one table control. You cannot surround repeater with a div tag. But I see your point. Let us think about it, and if we find a way to do this, I will come back to you. I will put your site so I remember about it. Have some more? Okay, we have some more questions, so I will give the microphone to Alan.
Okay, thank you, Carol. I have another batch of questions here, starting with Don, who asks, can the RESTful API be used to create tables that have the columns specified at runtime? No, I think that needs to be specified at design time. Mohammed asks, please name the tools for report generation. I think you're referring to real-time, meaning runtime report generation that a user would use to kind of dynamically query a database and construct reports and so forth. And sure, some of those are Crystal reports, Microsoft reporting services, MicroStrategy, fast reports, business objects. I mean, those are some that you can use. There are, like I say, many tools there, which is why we don't do it. This problem's been solved 23 times from Sunday. Jaya Kumar asks, have you integrated any barcode library with version 12? I want to display barcodes and QR codes in the reports. We have not, but I know there are a number of forum posts on how to do that. So you might go to our technical forums and query that. You can actually just go up here and search, and that will include things from our technical forums as well. So I would just look at barcode, and you'll get a bunch of entries. Muhammad asks, do you provide multilingual features on data field level instead of labels only? Well, the way a designer-generated application works is whatever you have stored in the database, it will display. So, for example, to pick something complicated, if you have a text field that contains a string of text with English characters, Cyrillic characters, Mandarin characters, and so forth, it will display it as is. It will show it to you exactly in the right format. And this is a standard .NET behavior, and we just simply pass it through. So you can actually have mixed language text coming out of your database. It'll display on your pages just fine. If you're asking something different, please be a little more specific on that question. What we don't do is attempt to translate text coming out of a database in real time. So sorry about that. Jay Benson asks, can a license in version 12 also be used for version 8.0.02 and back again to version 12? Well, presumably if you have an app in version 8.0.02, you have a license for version 8. A version 12 product key will not work with version 8. You need to have a version 8 product key or a version 8 license to use version 8. So if you need a version 8 license, please reach out to our sales team, and they'll be happy to get you situated. Second question he asks is, please, are there improvements on reporting with Iron Speed Designer? We have been waiting for some reporting grouping features, at least to a first level, alongside newer versions of Iron Speed Designer for simple reports. Well, we have a group by feature in Designer. That's one of the standard page types. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you're asking for or not. So if I go over here to pages, we have a group by page. Perhaps that's what you're looking for. So what we have is kind of available here that you can see. Octavio asks, can I use 32-bit and 64-bit for Access application and SQL projects based on project requirements with the same key? You use the same product key, if that's what you're asking, for both 32-bit and 64-bit versions of Iron Speed Designer. If you're asking something different, please let me know. I guess I don't quite understand this question, but it's the same product key for 32 and 64-bit Iron Speed Designer. Dave Statmiller says, big UI change, but very welcome. Well, thanks very much. We've tried our best to make things simpler and easier, and hope this will help going forward. Rick says, as a side note, fantastic new website. Thanks very much, Rick. I appreciate that. Al says, great presentation and very informative. Well, thank you, Al. Muhammad says, how to convert your application to a web service. I think what you are asking is how do you create a RESTful API application? If that's what you're asking, go to the application wizard here, click application type, and select RESTful API. You can select multiple at the same time a lot of times, and it'll generate both for you. So if that's what you're asking, that's how you do that. Eamon asks, is it possible to run a master details page in a pop-up page? I think what you're asking is, can you have a different master, can you have a master detail in a pop-up page? And the answer is yes. There's really nothing unique about a pop-up page. In general, they're designed to be a little smaller, you know, for like quick add and edit and whatnot. But you can certainly open a pop-up page and add detail or child level panels, you know, all you want. So you can make that bad boy as complex as you possibly can. There's no restriction on it. It's just that when we generate them out of the box, we are assuming you just want to use it for a quick add or quick edit, that sort of thing. But no restrictions. Do anything with that page you want. Wayne asks, might be good for Carol to create RESTful API video. Yes, if you watch your email in March, one of our engineers will be doing a webinar focused on RESTful API. So stay tuned for that webinar. That'll be a webinar specifically for RESTful API. Abel says, great, thank you. You're most welcome. Joe says, looks great. Any improvements to the process of designing Iron Speed Designer reports in version 12? Not in version 12, but we do have some interesting things in the works for subsequent versions, specifically in terms of giving you more control and flexibility within the application wizard when you first generate a page as to exactly which detail panels you would like to see and which fields within each panel you would like to include. So you can just kind of go check, 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 decide exactly what you want and what you don't want, and it'll generate it right the first time. That's an improvement designed to save you from doing a lot of hand editing within the layout editor after the page is generated. But again, to be clear, that is not in version 12. That's underway for a subsequent release. John asks, suppose you have a table named product with a primary key of product ID and another column named subproduct ID in the same product table. Can you make subproduct ID a foreign key to product ID? Basically what you're asking is, can you have a self-referential table? Can a field in a table be a foreign key to itself, to the actual table? And the answer is yes. Simply declare that foreign key relationship within your database. That's the easy thing to do. So in your database, if there's a foreign key relationship, in your case, between subproduct ID and product ID in the same table, Designer handles that just fine and will generate the pages appropriately, and you don't have to do any extra work except simply declare the foreign key relationship in your database. John comments for barcode integration with Iron Speed Designer to use a product called ASPOSE, A-S-P-O-S-E. So thank you, John, for recommending that, ASPOSE, A-S-P-O-S-E. With that, I'll turn it back to Carol for another round of questions.
Okay, I have several questions about the languages. Let me click this. How can I design runtime help in more than 2 languages and link to pages in version 12? Well, you can create multilingual application in any version, including 12. Nothing really changed in this department. And so basically, you can generate pages, and all you want is to redirect when you click on the help to the proper page in the proper language. So basically, the controls which are going from resource files will be replaced. So you have 2 options. You can have one page, just one page, but to put all your help text in the resource files. Then, when you switch the culture, you will show the proper text anyway for your help. Or if you have huge text, for example, and you don't want to do this, you can have several pages for different languages. But programmatically, on your button click, redirect to the proper page, then you need to write some code. I think the resource files is a more elegant approach. I would go this way, but again, that's how you can do. Another question is, if an application supports 2 languages, such as English and Arabic, how can I switch between left to right and right to left direction when selecting proper language? That's the trick. The thing is that application can be configured either to be left or to right or right to left. You can have multiple languages, which basically all it does is retrieves proper values from the resource file. However, the text direction also involves different images, such as buttons shown a bit differently, the arrows point in different directions, etc. So when you cannot create application which kind of on fly change the images on the page. It's either that or this. But the text direction itself will change. But your application will not change its appearance. It will be just text direction change. And also, I have a nice comment from John related to the previous questions about language translation, which says, use Milestone MVP Miles Gibson for real-time language translation. Up works great. I have nothing against the Milestone application from Miles Gibson, so if you feel that it works great, you definitely can use it, and the Miles will be happy to deliver to you his application. Now I have a bunch of questions about different other issues. So, are there any changes related to generating Apple iOS 10 and Android apps? Only in this particular release, only one minor change: the support for the geolocation. It kind of almost as a bug fix, although nobody kind of logged it as a bug, but we improved the geolocation support in the mobile app. It should be actually on our, by the way, I will just use this chance to point you out that on our website, you can go always to the version history. Oh, it's a technical materials. I'm sorry. The website changed recently. I'm myself sometimes looking which menu I need to click. They're different now. And here, for every release, you can see the feature list, but also can have release notes. feature list is the list of major features, the one you see right here, like what's new, for example. But release notes list every change, even minor ones. For example, here you can say that one of the changes is geolocation support for native mobile apps. That answers your question, but I also recommend you to look here because it lists all the changes, including the reported bug fixes for the release. Useful information. We used it ourselves when we need to remember when this or this particular issue was implemented. Feature was implemented. Question from Mohammed. How to design a tree based on the tables fields instead of static labels? Static labels. Today, this is a strange day. It's the third time I don't understand the question. Something wrong with me. Maybe it's early morning or something. I really can't understand. What do you mean design a tree based on table fields instead of static labels? Labels are set to next to the value control. You mean instead of a table generated tree? That's not really the option. Unless you put the Microsoft or any other library tree control and bind it. You can do this, of course, just on the design grid, on layout editor. You can put any control you want inside the HTML editor and then add a code to bind it to database. But Designer doesn't generate trees or doesn't grow trees. Question from Michael. What are issues, if any, in going from .NET Framework 2.0 to 4.5? Well, it's an excellent question. Thank you for asking. I would not use 2.0 anyway. I would use 3.5, which is 2.0, but with the bug fixes and improved functionality. But basically, all the same features are available. So I would answer the risk going from 3.5 to 4.5, because there is no question you need to go to 3.5 from 2.0. This is just given. Don't even hesitate doing that. Just advantage, no disadvantage. Now, going to 4.5 has, as usual happens with Microsoft products, some advantages, some disadvantages. The advantages is that latest Microsoft browsers, and I'm specifically speaking about Microsoft browsers, change the way how they communicate with the .NET API. And because of it, to have full functionality of a lot of controls, such as pop-ups, proper position, etc., on the latest browsers, such as IE11, 4.5 framework is better. It's not applicable to Chrome or Mozilla, which work perfectly fine with all frameworks, but specifically the latest browsers work better with the 4.5 framework from Microsoft. However, said that, 4.5 has additional headache, if you wish. You can't use Cassini web server, you use only IS Express web server. You need to proper settings in web config to make sure it will run properly. And sometimes there could be some additional thinking needed to make your application run. However, if everything configured properly and you don't have problem with IS Express, 4.5 framework is newer, has better memory management, definitely, so this is an advantage. Visual Studio 2013 is much more convenient than 2008 if you need to write your own code. So I would say and some of the things don't work on 3.5. For example, RESTful API we generate only available on the 4.5 because we use Web API, which is available only on 4.5. Question from Rick. Can I expose a native mobile application to a RESTful API? Yes, of course, it's different issues. Your mobile application communicates with your web server application. Basically, it opens it via the browser. How your web server application hosted on some IIS server communicates to database is not in the picture. It could be RESTful or it could be non-RESTful. It doesn't really matter at all. So yes, of course, yes. Will you be adding support for SharePoint 2013? Question from Robert. I can't say yes or no, because at this particular second, it's not in the nearest development plans for the next release, and it, of course, can change at any moment for the release after that, but at this particular second, I can't confirm or not confirm when it could be and if it will be done. Can a new RESTful consumer application be connected to an existing ISD-created provider application? Yes, of course. All you need to make sure is that first you have the same schema, Otherwise, for example, if your consumer application uses a completely different schema, obviously your provider won't be able to provide the data for your table which doesn't exist in database or in the provider schema. So same schema first, and second, you need to make sure that you put proper the settings in the web config, such as, for example, if provider configured to use always HTTPS, make sure your consumer application also has this key set to use HTTPS. If provider uses encryption, make sure your consumer uses encryption. And make sure that your private and public key is properly configured on provider side, which is pretty easy to do. And then it will do. Yes, one more tiny thing is that we do recommend to both provider and consumer to have same UI culture, because certain combination of UI cultures could be tricky because, you know, the numbers are different in different UI cultures. And better have same type. Basically, we recommend to have provider always type of web application. Consumer then could be a website or web application. But yes, answer is yes. Does the RESTful API make use of Java Web Token? No. It uses Web API 2.0. Question from Al. Does it support server-sent events? Al, you really managed to confuse me today third time in a row. I think the question is about is it possible that web page can listen to the server-sent event, which is a functionality become available in HTML5. If this is the question, then answer is no. But the good news is it actually works, and we plan to include this functionality pretty soon. But for now, we do not generate any code to listen or consume server-sent push events specific for new HTML5 development. Part of the reason why we didn't hurry in implementing all this type of things, which was new for HTML5, is the browser support. Believe it or not, but we have a huge amount of customers, and there are clients actually, not our customers who use Designer, but there are clients who do not use latest browsers. And if you put specific feature which has to be only available with the latest browser, you have some problem. But the support is now getting better and better, so this and other HTML5 specific features are actually in works right now. Question from Joe, how that HTML5 compliant page styles are supported? Now that HTML5 compliant styles are supported, can further HTML5 specific customizations be made to a mobile page, such as adding access to local storage for Android or iPhone app? This is a very good question, and we're working on that right now. It's not yet in this release, but we're working on it. It should be out soon. Well, what kind of soon I can't say right now. It's just work has just started, but it definitely will be available in one of the next releases. For instance, adding customizations to save RESTful data to local storage and later retrieve and load data from local storage in the screen page. Yeah, that's what I mean. So basically, if you're offline, your local storage would be able to store the data which you enter or edit, and then you will synchronize it with your server, being RESTful or non-RESTful, doesn't matter. But again, the work has just started. It will definitely make a cut to one of the next releases, not yet in the current one. Last message I have from Benson, the RESTful app sounds really great. We look forward to it. Thank you very much for this comment. Do we have anything else? Well, we have some more, and then switch to Alan.
All right. Thank you very much. We have just a handful of questions left here, so I'm going to give you a warning here. Please get your final questions in if you haven't already. We have about 8 or 9 questions queued up here, so consider this kind of a 2-minute warning. Muhammad asks, can AutoCAD drawings or ESRI maps be displayed in a page? Well, it's a .NET application, so anything you can display in a .NET application can be displayed in an Iron Speed Designer generated application. And that's the way to think about it. So if your browser can display it, then you can include it in a Designer app and it can be displayed. A lot of times, if you need say a third-party control to render something, that's easy. You just go to whatever cell you want to put this thing in. It could be anywhere, like here or wherever you want it. Just click in the cell, open the HTML editor, type in whatever third-party control you need, just like you would in a regular Visual Studio environment, and away you go. So that's all that's required there. Eamon says, can we share pages between multiple applications? In another way, when building an ERP system, is it better to have one huge application or multiple small applications or modules and share pages between them? You know, I don't know that I have a specific recommendation for that. We have customers that do both, actually. A lot of folks tend to take the more modular approach, where you have, you know, a number of smaller applications. That's probably what I would recommend if the applications are used by different groups in a company. That way they don't have to look at all the other features or pages in it, or even be aware that that's available. On the other hand, here at Iron Speed, we have a CRM that has all sorts of marketing and stuff in it that the marketing guys look at, and engineering task management stuff that the engineers look at. So that's just one big app here. We call that thing Nexus, and it's just one giant app. So it really depends on what you want to do. If you want to take the giant app approach, then I might recommend you use security, and role-based security in particular, to constrain who can see what. That way they're not, you don't have the marketing guys playing in the engineering bug database and vice versa, or you're simply not confusing the marketing folks with engineering task management and stuff like that. So there are a couple of different ways to skin this cat, so I don't know that I have a particular recommendation for you. It just depends on kind of what is right for you, but we've seen both, and both seem to work equally well. Michael asks, Mohammed wants the label to come from a variable and not the static ISD-generated value for the label. Okay, so suppose you have a label that actually comes out of the database, for example, as opposed to just some static thing. That's okay too. You don't have to use our generated labels at all. Just delete them. So if you don't like this label here, just delete it and drag a different control onto the page that pulls the appropriate text out of a database. Or if you want the text displayed here to be, say, coming out of a resource file, a resx file, that's easy to do. You go over here to the databases screen. So I'm going to switch from the layout editor now to databases. And up here under actions, you see there's this thing called label text. And you see here, it's actually a formula. So I'll just open the editor here, and what I can do is pull that out of a resource file by using the resource function. So if you want to look at, oops, clicked the wrong thing there, apologize. If I want to see the function list, then what I can do here is go find the appropriate thing here. So somewhere in this is the resource, right? And so if you happen to have a variable out in a resource file, you know, that might be, you know, like text, article, label. I just made that up. That's how you would do it, and that'll pull that out of a resource file instead and display that appropriately, you know, throughout your application. So just make one change here on the databases tab if that's what you're trying to do. Again, I'm not quite sure. So two different approaches. You know, one is to pull the text out of a resource file. Another is don't use the label at all, but use a field that happens to contain the appropriate context. Okay, I'll switch back to Kirill, who's got the last 3 or 4 questions.
Thank you. Yes, I do have them over here. How we can get access to static list without going into Designer for changes and updates? Well, the trick is that if it's a static list, by definition of this list, it needs to be configured on the design mode because it's not dynamic. If you need to be able to modify the list, pull it from database. But the static list, you need to basically go to Designer, and for any of your my millions of filters which I was dragging and dropping right here, I think, like a lot of those guys. So basically, if I have any of them as a drop-down list, I can go here and say populate from static list, and right here, when I click this dialog, I will add this. But this is a really hard-coded items. Hence it's called static. With regards to the translation question, if a customer name has two fields in database, one is a Latin name, another an Arabic name, how we can select proper field to display based on the culture? That's actually that could be pretty simple customization. You might have even a formula because it depends on how you do it, or you can have because you see for any field. Well, now I need to go from my filters, which I created. Let's go to some fields. So I don't know, doesn't matter. Right here, I can populate some formulas. Well, I could, of course, do resource value or something else, but if the value is populated from the database, you might have a formula that if something equals to that, then you populate my last name in Latin, otherwise populate it from English. So basically, to insert formula, you go logical if, and etc. If then condition would be your environment, so you go to environment. You need to somehow, let me think for a second. Maybe you need to write a code because you need to value of. What I would do, I would go to the base application, to base formula utils, and edit new formula, which will return me the value of culture, retrieving it from the, so basically it will be just a very simple formula. If I get culture, which will go to HTTP current context.ui culture, and if this equals to that, return this, if that, return that. Then you will see this formula in this list, and you can use this formula to select one of the values. Or you can just write a code, so either way. I would go with the formula because it kind of would be useful in a lot of places and much easier to maintain. And as I mentioned, you put new formula right here in the base formula utils in section 1. You just type in new formula. Similar like we have all other formulas over here. You can see how they implement it. It's a public shared function, basically. A question from Al. Can you touch the topic of input mask? Meaning the text can only text box without special characters, searching text, etc. Well, first of all, on the database tab, if you go here and select any field, you can have this validation type over here. And validation type could be different. It could be a bunch of preset types. And for some of them, you have actually the masks. So how you can specify this or that, it's called display format. But validation type allows you to enter only one thing, but not another thing. If I have validation type number, it will allow only number. If I have a currency, it will use currency, create card, and so on. So you either use that, and then you can change display format, or you need to put some client-side validation. Maybe you can put some JavaScript over there. I want to create a tree with the parent items and then show all items as a subtree from items table and customers as another parent, showing customers from customers table as a subtree. How do I do this? Designer doesn't generate trees. Designer generates the tables and records, which could be parents and or master and details, but they are not shown in the form of trees. They are shown in the form of parents or of tables. Thank you very much for so good version for us to make our lives and development easier. That's from Mohammed. You're very welcome. We're trying our best. Is there some way to make a shared data access layer and business layer between applications using the same database? Well, not really. They are a portion of the application, and you can't really reference to the same data access layer from different presentation layers. However, if you have similar, you can create one application and duplicate it with a similar functionality and then just change presentation layer. That is possible. So basically, reusing the application is always a good idea. how Iron Speed Designer security allows sharing pages between multiple applications. Well, okay, I think the question is the following, that if I created multiple applications and I want to impose the common security, how do I do this? Well, if you want really to have different standalone applications, so they're not combined and they're really standalone, then you have to implement security on each of them and then write some code to pass tokens such as URL parameters, for example, could be encrypted, of course, from one application to another when you click on the menu to go from one to another one. Basically, that would be the approach. And I don't have any more questions. Do we have anything over there?
Okay, I think let's wrap up. We have one final comment from Jim Anthony, who says, thanks for the great work by the team. You're most welcome. And with that, I think we'll conclude today's webinar. Thank you so much for being Iron Speed customers and having so much interest in version 12. And we hope to see you back here very, very soon.